بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي وسلم على رسوله الكريم سيدنا ونبينا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Respected ulama kiram, hufaz kiram, brothers, elders, mothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it looks like the energy levels have increased today, mashallah. So Sehri was good this morning, inshallah. Let's talk you of Sehri and eating. Time of Sehri is also masnoon, is sunnah, to eat dates. It's sunnah to have dates. So try and make a habit of having dates at the time of Sehri. Inshallah, this will be very helpful, very beneficial because of the proteins and everything else that's good in there. Inshallah, it will be very, very beneficial for you and will sustain you throughout the day. Many people have bananas because bananas take long to digest and they think, right, let me eat 3-4 bananas, and then you realize, hold on, not a good idea because of the stomach ache. Yeah. So, khair. Have one, have anything, but have it in moderation. When eating, especially at the time of Iftar, it's very easy that a person can end up with indigestion because it's like you haven't seen food for the past 2 weeks, when you sit down at Iftar. Oh, Mom, you made this, after so long. Meanwhile, you know what? You get it all the time. So be moderate in your eating, don't overeat. Set a target of how much you're going to eat and make sure that target is not crazy high, because the last thing you want is to come for Iftar, Taraweeh, and then you have to experience what I had to experience last night. Someone somewhere brought in some barakat and flavors with them, but they weren't very welcomed. Yeah, and that's what happens. You eat too much, now you got garbar in the stomach, you got garbar downstairs, you got garbar in with your breath, and now everyone else must suffer the consequences because of you overeating. So please be considerate. Khair. A few weeks ago, BBC or one of the news channels mentioned something with regards to depression, mental health awareness, and they mentioned that in the past decade, the medication for depression and so forth has more than doubled. Yeah? So that means more people have been diagnosed, more people are on treatment, and it's becoming more and more common that people are now being treated as opposed to before. With mental health, yes, it is a big issue many a times, especially under certain communities. You find that people don't like to mention these things because of what people will say. And people live their lives with this worry, what people will say, what people will say, what people will say, living their life in misery, whereas no one, at the end of the day, if they're not putting food on your table, they're not putting clothes on your back, they're not paying and putting the roof over your head, you don't need to worry about them. Yeah. Yes, you need to worry, what will people say if I obey my Allah? Then that's something to worry about. But people don't worry about that. People worry about, people are going to say my child is disabled, has mental illness, has this difficulty, has that difficulty. No, it needs to be treated, and it should be treated. One tafsir it is mentioned, لا يسمع سورة يوسف محزون إلا استراح إليها. This is from the lessons what I will be sharing with you, inshallah, for the better part, if not the whole month, inshallah, is the stories of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. And we are going to look into the details of Surah Yusuf. And Surah Yusuf, one of the mufassirs, one of the commentators, one of those who have delved deep into the meaning of the Quran, has mentioned that it is not such that a person who is sad, who has depression, who has any kind of difficulty in that line, that they do not hear Surah Yusuf, they do not understand Surah Yusuf, and that they are not cured of it. Yani Surah Yusuf is such a powerful surah that those that are depressed, and that's a lot of people nowadays, if you have to listen to Surah Yusuf, read Surah Yusuf, and understand the deeper meanings of Surah Yusuf, then you will find that this will be extremely beneficial for a person who suffers from depression. May Allah Ta'ala save us from depression, and for those that have depression, may Allah Ta'ala grant them all ease and afiyat from that, inshallah. Inshallah. Just to understand the Quran, it's in a different language to what most of us were brought up speaking. It's in Arabic, and in Surah Yusuf it's mentioned, Inna nahnu anzalnahu. Yeah, Allah Ta'ala says that we have revealed it, Qur'anan Arabiyyan la'allakum ta'qilun. We have revealed it in the Arabic language, and we'll look into that why. But just by reciting the Quran, although you don't understand anything, has its own merits and its own benefits. Yeah. Over and above that, to go more than that and study and try to understand the Quran, naturally within your heart, love of Allah will grow. Yeah. Many a times we read Salah, we may even read Surah Yasin in Salah because it's a big night or something. Yeah. Or we might read a long surah, the longest that we know, as much as we can read. But because we haven't understood what we are reading, then we find that there's a very little effect as far as us receiving solace, comfort, peace, and some sort of tranquility in our lives. Whereas Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said the opposite. So if you look at our masajid, after 8 rakats, the masjid is empty. Half of the brothers disappear. I'm sure some of them have valid excuses why they're going away, but not necessarily everyone. Why is it that we don't enjoy that? We are standing in Taraweeh. That one masjid I heard about, the Taraweeh finished on the first night. Some people complained, why was it so long? The second night when it finished, they said, why was it so short? Then the third night they complained, why wasn't it long? So you can't always win. But you find people go to the Haramain Sharifain and many other masajid around the world, and Taraweeh lasts for 2 hours, just Taraweeh alone. Taraweeh lasts for 2 hours. So they will read 4 rakats, after 4 rakats they will take a break. Some people will even start doing tawaf. And that's what the Sahaba used to do. That's where that break comes in between the 4 rakats. So can you imagine how long that break was? Here, 2 minutes, and people are starting people are clearing their throats louder and louder and louder. Then Mani Sahib, come on, you got to get moving now. We've got things to do. But the reality is, if we don't enjoy, Qurratu aini fi salah, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, coolness of my eyes in salah, and today we read salah and we are crying because we want to get out of here. Not everyone. I'm not judging everyone or painting everyone with the same brush. But generally you find that, look at on the Jummah, the Imam has barely said the second salam. Before he's even said, wa rahmatullah, half the people are all the way out. We don't even take part in dua nowadays. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَتُوبُوا إِلَى اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا أَيُّهَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. All of you together seek forgiveness. Turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ayyuhal mu'minun, O believers, turn together to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in full submission. لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. You know what's going to happen? Then you will be successful. One of the elements of success, one of the things that can help us attain success, here it is in front of us. What do we need to do? We need to practice upon these things. Inshallah. You find that in this day and age, immorality is such a common thing. It can happen to anyone. Young, old, male, female. And you find that in the story of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, there is Sayyidina Yusuf. Now we know that Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam was the most handsome man ever to grace the presence of this earth. And Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, he had half that beauty. He was extremely handsome. We know the story, and inshallah we'll look at it where the woman cut their fingers. And how the poet said that they would have cut their hearts. Inshallah we'll look at that later. And some other time, inshallah. But we find that Yusuf alayhi salam, a very handsome young boy or young man, he is bought by the minister of Egypt. He takes him home. And the minister's wife is not just any old woman. She's elegant, she's smart, she's a beautiful woman. She carries that beauty also. And she entices Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. And if he wanted, he could have done whatever he wanted. He could have committed zina, and no one had to know about it. And that too, he wasn't committing zina. He wasn't going to be involved in a relationship, a haram relationship, that anyone had to know about. He could have carried on. He could have got a lot more favors and benefits. But because of his love of Allah, he said, no, I can't. And the Mufassirin, inshallah, we'll look at this also, where it's mentioned, where people said, right, okay, how are we going to find out who was guilty? Was he guilty or was she guilty? She says, I grabbed him and I tore his shirt. Then they're going to look now. They say, right, okay, now look at his shirt. If it's torn from the front, if it's torn from the back, this is what the outcome should be. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ She locked the doors. You think women trying to attack men is only happening now? It was happening from then. Yeah? Not to say men don't do it. Generally, you hear more about men doing it. But even these things, sometimes these things happen in a person's life where a person has been abused in some way, shape or form whatsoever. Speak up about it. Because sometimes that is what the thing that is making your life difficult 30 years later, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years later. Speak up about it, get some counseling. There is that support available. So why not go and gain benefit from that? You find that Yusuf alayhi salam, he was very much loved in the prison. Somewhere I read President Morsi, I don't know if that's a correct pronunciation, but this is his 7th Ramadhaan in prison. I don't know if he's guilty or not guilty, or what he did wrong, what he didn't do wrong. I don't know about all of that. All I know is another Muslim is sitting in prison. Sometimes we go there, and we must never ever judge a Muslim that is in prison. I tell you why. Because in my time that I had worked in prisons, and I'm talking about maximum security prisons, in that time that I was there was only 2 people that I worked with that were born Muslim. The rest, 50, 60, 70 of them that I worked with, all accepted Islam in the prison. Yeah? They accepted Islam in the prison. So never ever look at someone that, you know what, this person here, he's just come out of jail. As a matter of fact, some of you may be aware, I mentioned recently that we are trying to embark on a project where we are going to support those people that have been in prison. Now they're coming out into the community. They have tried to rectify their life. And obviously, we're not just going to get some madman and say, right, okay, come for namaz now. You know, this guy's been hacking people. I would say, no, come for salah here with us. You know, we don't mind if you hack us also. No. There's got to be, obviously, protocols. We have children that come here. All those things will take part. But the thing is, and we as a community are to blame for this. Because what happens is, a person has done something wrong. Wrong place, wrong time. Did the crime, did the time, now comes out. And everyone says, oh, have you seen so-and-so's son? Yeah, he's back out of prison now. Yeah, that whole family I know, they're all corrupt. Yeah, meanwhile you're more corrupt yourself, but no, I know they were corrupt all along. Then you say, yeah, that person, no, now he's come for salah. I don't understand. Next when people will think I'm a criminal. But he's coming to salah to do what? To speak to his creator. Who are we to judge a person that is in that position? And what happens, and this is from speaking to many chaplains, they have said that when they have spoken to re-offending brothers and sisters, it has happened because when they've gone out into society, the community have made them feel so inferior and so horrible and so bad about themselves that they said the only people that were prepared to welcome us with open arms were the criminals that we knew. We wanted to avoid that. We wanted to stay away from those bad people because we don't want to come back in here. But because our communities and families also shunned us, we were left with that. That's